Got to get woke up. Acts chapter 12 is where we're going to be. It's been three weeks, really, since I preached, and 3 weeks since we were in Acts. I'm still trying to decide how I want to go forward with the series and when I want to take a pause on it, or if I do want to take a pause on it. I initially planned to pause the Acts study somewhere around the middle of summer and do something else for a little bit and then come back to it. And I haven't really decided how I want to do that this week. I've loved this series so much. Every week has been so good. I've learned so much personally, and God's just used it in my life. I trust that He's used it in yours too. But so we'll just see how we do with it. But today we're looking at the last story in Acts, really about Peter. We'll see him referenced again in Acts chapter 15. But this is the last story in the book of Acts that really has Peter at the center of the story. And as we go into it, I want to start with one verse that got my mind moving as I was preparing and studying for this text. There was one verse that really set my mind going in the direction that I'm going today, and that was verse 11. So verse 11 is where I want to start. If you look down at verse 11, the Bible says there, when Peter came to himself, he said, "Now I am sure that the Lord has sent his angel and rescued me from the hand of Herod." Then listen to what he says next. "And from all that the Jewish people were expecting." Rescued me from the hand of Herod and from all that the Jewish people were expecting. Today I want to talk about being ready for the unexpected. Ready for the unexpected. So much of our lives are controlled by the routines and the patterns that we build into our life that give our everyday life shape. We wake up to our alarm most every day about the same time. We get up, we have our morning routine to get ready, we leave and we go to work. We work throughout the day, come home, have dinner. Then we have our nightly routines that we do, pretty much the same thing about every night. Then we go to bed and we get up and we do it again the next day. That is most people. Some of you have more variety in your lives maybe than that, but most people have that type of routine. We structure our lives in a way that we mostly know what's coming next. I know a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people, it's boring to them. But for me, it's comfortable. I like knowing what to expect. I like knowing what's coming next. I don't necessarily like to be surprised by things happening in my life. I like knowing that if you were to ask me, "Hey, what are you going to be doing on Tuesday at 12 o'clock? I can tell you almost without fail, I'm going to be eating. What are you going to be doing Wednesday at 12 o'clock? Eating. What are you going to be doing Thursday at 12 o'clock? Eating. It's like every day, it's about the same thing. I know I'm going to be eating. I don't know what I'm going to be eating, but I know I'm going to be eating. If you ask me, what are you going to be doing on Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock? I can always tell you what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be on the couch. Every Sunday afternoon, 2 o'clock. I don't know about today. It depends on how long my family stays, but every day or every Sunday, 2 o'clock, I'm going to be on the couch, either asleep or trying to go to sleep. And then I'm going to wake up and I'm going to have my last cup of coffee of the day, my fourth cup. You could set your alarm by my schedule. I like it. That might be boring to you, but I don't really care if it's boring to you because I like it. I like to know what's coming. But I've learned this in my life, and I think you probably have learned the same thing in your life, but I've learned that life doesn't always follow my pattern. I establish my patterns, I establish the routines in my life, and I hold to them. I'm not too rigid, but no matter how rigid you are, no matter how fixed your routine might be, there are going to be things that you don't see coming. There are going to be things that you don't expect that are going to invade your life. And I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say probably everybody in here had something that happened to them this past week that they didn't see coming. Every one of us had something in our lives this past week that was unexpected. It might have been a good thing, it might have been a bad thing, but it happened. I'll tell you, for me, I expected last Sunday to preach this message. That was my expectation. I did not see coming that I was going to be laid up in the bed with 103 fever. I didn't see it coming. I bet you Kellen did not expect that he was going to be up here last week preaching, and he did a great job. But I bet he didn't see that coming. I didn't see it coming. There are things that happen in our lives each and every week that we don't see coming. I'm gonna go out on a limb here in another way, and I'm going to say, I bet The same thing's going to happen next week for you. I'm not even a prophet, and I'm predicting the future for you. Something is going to happen next week that you didn't see coming. Something's going to happen next week that you never even expected. And I say that, and the thing of it is all of you believe me, don't you? You're not asking for my prophetic credentials right now. You don't even need to see them. I'm not a prophet, but you don't need to see it. Because you know, we all absolutely know that unexpected things are going to happen in our life. We know that we should expect the unexpected. How many of you have heard that before? Expect the unexpected. So you know that, you've been trained for that, you understand that, but how many of you, when the unexpected thing happens, you're still surprised? Isn't that the way it is? We expect the unexpected, but when the unexpected thing happens, we're still surprised by it. That's sort of the paradox of it all. And so when I talk about being ready for the unexpected this week, I'm not talking about specific scenarios that may happen to us. There is no way that any of us could prepare for every possible scenario that could happen to us. You will drive yourself crazy if you spend all your time thinking about every possible thing that might be able to happen. If you've got a notebook beside your bed, a journal of all the things that you're preparing yourself for, even if you are a prepper, God bless you, if you're preparing for the apocalypse, the end of civilization itself, maybe that's not a bad idea, but what I would say is you cannot prepare for every scenario that you could possibly have happen to you. And so we're not talking about trying to anticipate every possible uncertainty, but what we're talking about is our response to uncertain things. What is a Christian response to uncertainties? What is a Christian response to unexpected things? How should a Christian be ready for things that we do not see coming? When I look at this passage in Acts chapter 12, I see it filled with unexpected things. It's filled with things that no one saw coming. And as you watch this story unfold, you find in it this beautiful lesson in how, as a believer, we can be ready for things that we didn't see coming. Now, I could break it down any number of different ways, but I'm just going to keep it real simple for us this morning and break it down in two ways. First thing I want to look at this morning, I want to look at being ready for unexpected trials. Being ready for unexpected trials. This is really what this is about. This is what I'm talking about this morning. I'm not talking about unexpected blessings, right? How many of us are worried about what we would do if unexpected blessings dropped in our lap? Anybody sweating that? Anybody paranoid about that? Anybody freaked out going, you sit up at night and you're going, what if somebody gave me $1 million? What would I do if all of a sudden, unexpectedly, I was rich overnight? I don't even know how I would deal with that. Where would I put all the money? Would I put it in the bank? Would I put it in an investment? You know, what kind of portfolio would I establish? Would I save? How much would I spend? I don't know. God, would you help me deal with getting rich overnight? Nobody's worried about that. Nobody's worried about unexpected positive diagnosis at the doctor's office, right? You went to the doctor, you're thinking it's going to be something bad. He tells you it's not anything bad at all. It's really nothing serious. How many of you are stressed about that good report? You're stressed about, your academic scholarship. I've been waiting to figure out how I'm going to pay to get into college. What will I do if I get a scholarship? Nobody thinks about those things. They're all unexpected. They're all things that can catch us off guard. They're all things that can surprise us, but none of it is anything that stresses us out. No one's worried about that. No, what we're thinking about, what we're concerned about, what we try to figure out how we would deal with are unexpected trials. And that's what you see in this text. As it begins, you find an unexpected trial. So if you have your Bible open, let's go ahead and look at the trial. Verse 1 in Acts 12, the Bible says, about that time, Herod the king laid violent hands on some who belonged to the church. He killed James, the brother of John, with a sword. And when he saw that it pleased the Jews, he proceeded to arrest Peter also. This was during the days of unleavened bread. And when he had seized him, he put him in prison, delivering him over to 4 squads of soldiers to guard him, intending after the Passover to bring him out to the people. So Peter was kept in prison, but earnest prayer for him was made to God by the church. Now, we talk about unexpected trials, and you may, at least at first glance, go, what is unexpected about this? This is not the first time we've seen persecution in Acts, right? If you've been following along with us during this series, if you've ever read through Acts before, you've seen persecution happen over and over again in Acts. This is not the first person who was martyred for their faith. We saw Stephen be killed for his faith back in Acts chapter 8. It's not the first time Peter or the apostles have been in prison. We've seen them in prison a number of different times before. So what is it that makes this unexpected? What makes this particular scenario unexpected? Well, I would say that it's unexpected because of who it happens to. This is the first apostle to die. And it's not just any apostle. It's not like Matthias died, the guy that no one knows who they are. No one even knows anything about Matthias. It's not like it's him, the last guy that got chosen. No, this is James. This is the brother of John. This is the one of the first disciples that Jesus called. This was a man that was in the inner circle of 3 of Jesus' closest followers. You had the 12 who went with him everywhere, but then you had the 3, Peter, James, and John. And James and John were each other's brothers. They were with Jesus in the most intimate moments of Jesus' life. They were closer to him than anybody else in the world. And so I don't mean to put it in these terms, but I don't know how else to put it except to say this is the biggest name to die so far in the book of Acts. And it wasn't just that it was an unordinary person who died, but it's also that he died in an unordinary way. It's not like James went to sleep and he didn't wake up again. No, he was killed in a violent way by Herod the king. And when it says that Herod laid violent hands on him and killed him with a sword, what it's saying is that his head was cut off. And so the church is in shock. They don't have too much time to process it before Herod also has Peter arrested, another one of the members of the circle of 3. And Herod plans to do the same thing to Peter. So now I want you to notice how the church responds to James versus how they respond to Peter. Look at the difference. There's a difference. I want you to understand something. When James is killed, Herod doesn't just go up to James and chop his head off. It's not like James is out just doing his thing. Herod comes up, gets a sword, chops his head off there in the public square. It didn't go like that. No, he would have first been arrested too. He would have first been put in prison too. We don't know how long he would have stayed. Might have been a short time, might have been a little bit longer amount of time, but we know it didn't just happen. No, there was a lead up that built up to his execution. And I say that for this reason, because when James is put in prison waiting on his execution, you don't see any real sense of urgency from the church. You don't see any action that they take. There's no mention of anything that they do when James is imprisoned and waiting to be put to death. Now, why is that? Why is it that the church shows no action, no urgency? It's for this reason, I believe. It's because they did not expect anything to happen to him. They didn't expect him to actually die. They figured that he would get out like all the apostles had done before him. But when he is actually executed, then the church springs into action. And unfortunately, this is a good example for us that a lot of times it takes something really awful actually happening before we're sent into that place of urgency and desperation. And until that thing happens that we didn't expect to happen, until that awful thing happens, we don't have the sense of urgency that we would have otherwise happened. And so after James is killed and when Peter is put in prison, you'll notice that they spring then into action. But I want you to notice here for a second what the action is. This is going to tell us something. What is the action that the church sprung into when Peter is put in jail? Do they petition Herod to let him out? Do they march around holding signs around the prison saying, "Release Peter from jail"? Do they plan a movie-style elaborate escape for Peter to get out of prison? They're going to go in the night. They're going to bust him out. They're going to get him out of there. No, they don't do any of those things. What do? Look at verse 5. Verse 5 of chapter 12 says, "So Peter was kept in prison, but earnest prayer for him was made to God by the church." So what is the action that the church took? The action is prayer. Prayer is the action. And I want to give you 3 things about this prayer that you see in verse 5. Number 1, it's corporate prayer. This is not prayer closets. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I hope and trust that each of you have a place that you go in your home where you get away from other people and get alone with the Lord. I hope you have that. I don't care if it's a closet, a chair, a room that you go in, out on your back porch, wherever it is that you get alone with God, get in the Word of God, get in prayer to God. You should have that. That is very, very important. But this is not your prayer closet or chair or couch or porch or whatever. This is a prayer meeting. This is a prayer meeting. We need both of those things. We need individual prayer, but we need corporate prayer as well. And in this case, this is the entire church that's mobilized all across the city. Obviously, it was too big for them to all meet together, but all across the city, in the homes that they met in the places where they gathered together, the church would have gathered together, got down on their knees, and talked to the Lord on behalf of Peter. There is power in corporate prayer. Number 2, it's earnest prayer. It's not just corporate, it's earnest. And by that I mean, this is not just something that they did out of habit. This is not just a ritual. This is not just a thing they checked off their list, like, what do we need to do? Well, I guess we better start with prayer. Let's check that off the list. No, earnest means it arises out of a deep conviction. Arising out of a deep conviction. Now, what is the deep conviction? Here it is. There's a deep conviction they have that God is able to do things that they could not do. So let me ask you this question. Do you believe that God has strength to do things that you cannot do? Do you believe God is able to do things that you yourself could not do? 2 or 3 of you believe that. I'm glad. Let me talk to the rest of you. That's where your earnestness comes from. The earnestness that you have in prayer. The thing that sends you to your knees. The thing that gathers you, brings you together with your brothers and sisters, calling out to the Lord. The thing that does that is the knowledge, the deep belief, the conviction that you have in your soul, in your spirit, in your mind, that God is able to do something that I can't do on my own. That brought them together and it drove them to their knees. So there's earnestness in their prayer. And then the third thing is it's continual. So many of our prayers are just prayers in passing. It's prayers we whisper in passing, and those are okay prayers too. But the tense of the verb here of earnest prayer, it's an imperfect tense, which I know that doesn't mean anything to you, but what it means in the grammar itself is it means it's a continual action. It's not just something they did once, but no, for 7 days and 7 nights we see later. They're gathered together, continuing to pour themselves out to the Lord on behalf of Peter. It's a continual action. So what did the church do in response to Peter? What did the church do? The action they took, they prayed. Some people think prayer, think about this. Some people think prayer is the opposite of action. They would say there's doing and then there's praying, and they think that prayer gets in the way of action. And I wonder if that's how you look at it. Let me ask you this. Do you believe prayer is a distraction or an action? Does prayer get in the way of what you need to be doing? Is prayer a waste of time? You go, man, think of all the things we could do. We don't have time for this. We need to be working to get him out of jail. No. The church shows here that prayer is the first and the most important thing that we can do in response to an unexpected trial. And sometimes it's the only thing that we can do. Sometimes there's nothing else that we can do, but at the very least, it's the first response. It's the most important response to unexpected trial. So I want you to think for a second. Think in your life. Think about an unexpected trial that you've recently faced. What's something that you've gone through recently? It's a trial. You didn't see it coming. You didn't expect it to happen, but it happened. Maybe it was an unexpected illness. Maybe it was an unexpected financial trial that you went through. Maybe it was an unexpected relationship crisis that you went through. Maybe someone left you that you thought would never leave you. Maybe someone passed away that you expected to still be here. What is it in your life? What is the trial that you never expected, you never saw coming, that's recently happened in your life? Let me ask you this. What is the first response that you had to that trial? How did you respond? What's the first thing that you did? Who's the first person that you turned to? And then let me ask you this. Who did you have in your corner? Who was in your corner? Notice in verse 5, it says, but Peter was kept in prison, but, this is one of those good buts in the Bible, but earnest prayer for him was made to God by the church. I have no doubt Peter prayed by himself when he was in jail. I have no doubt about that. But Peter had thousands of people in his corner praying for him. So can I speak to the church for a second? If you're a part of Gallonsville, if you're a part of any church, can we be the church that never lets someone have an empty corner? Can we be the church that never allows someone to go through that trial alone? I can promise you there are people here that they don't think they have anyone they can turn to pray for them. They don't think they have anyone in their corner. They may have a family that doesn't believe in the Lord. They may not have many friends that believe in the Lord. And they may be uncertain about how we would respond as a church to their trials. I want to challenge us. I want to exhort us. I want us to be the place that never lets someone have that empty corner. Be that place where people are comfortable and confident to come to us in that unexpected trial because they know that we're going to fill the corner and that we're going to fill the throne room of God with prayer on behalf of you. Prayer is the way to be ready for unexpected trials, whatever they might be. Whatever they might be. Number 2, let's look at being ready for unexpected answers. Unexpected answers. I know that one sounds a little bit strange because we always think about being ready for the problem that happens, but we don't often think about being ready for the answer. But sometimes, you think about this, sometimes the answer is more unexpected than the problem is. Right? Look at verse 6. Now when Herod was about to bring him out, on that very night, Peter was sleeping between two soldiers bound with two chains, and sentries before the door were guarding the prison. And behold, an angel of the Lord stood next to him, and a light shone in the cell. He struck Peter on the side and woke him, saying, "Get up quickly." And the chains fell off his hands, and the angel said to him, "Dress yourself, put on your sandals," and he did so. And he said to him, "Wrap your cloak round you and follow me." And he went out and followed him. He did not know what was being done by the angel was real, but thought he was seeing a vision. When they had passed the first and the second guard, they came to the iron gate leading into the city. It opened for them of its own accord, and they went out and went along one street, and immediately the angel left him. When Peter came to himself, he said, "Now I am sure that the Lord has sent his angel and rescued me from the hand of Herod and from all that the Jewish people were expecting." When he realized this, he went to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose other name was Mark, where many were gathered together and were praying. Remember, I said they're praying even at night. And when he knocked at the door of the gateway, a servant girl named Rhoda came to answer. Recognizing Peter's voice, in her joy, she did not open the gate, but ran and reported that Peter was standing at the gate. They said to her, "You are out of your mind." But she kept insisting that it was so. And they kept saying, "It is his angel." But Peter continued knocking. And when they opened, they saw him and were amazed. But motioning to them with his hand to be silent, he described to them how the Lord had brought him out of the prison and said to him, "Tell these things to James," that's the other James, the brother of the Lord, and to the brothers. Then he departed and went to another place. Now, the first thing I noticed, and maybe this is because I'm a procrastinator myself, I noticed that God waits until the last minute to step in here. Did you notice that? Did you notice the language it used? It says, on that very night. The night before he was about to die. That's when God steps in. God waited until the very last minute to step in. And if you remember back to the first time Peter was in jail, God got him out of jail the same night that he went in. And isn't that what we want? How many of you want to wait? Do you want to wait for God's answer? How many of you want to get out the day you go in? How many of you want the trial to end the day the trial starts? Of course we do. We all want to get out the moment that it starts, but God doesn't always do it that way. Sometimes God makes us wait. Sometimes he doesn't rescue us immediately. Sometimes he doesn't rescue us at all. Look at James, who just lost his head. But right here, God's making Peter wait until the very last minute. Peter's been waiting here. And I want you to think about this too. We think about unexpected trials, but sometimes the unexpected part of the trial, that's the best part, because isn't it sometimes harder? Isn't it sometimes harder to deal with the trials that you know are coming than it is the ones you never expected? Sometimes the hardest trials are not the ones that we didn't see coming, but they're the ones that we saw coming. We knew they were ahead of us, and we had to wait on them to get there. That's what happens here. Peter knew the law. The law said that he could not be executed during the week of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Couldn't do that, but that Herod intended after the end of the feast to bring him out, and that was when he was going to execute Peter. So do you know what that means? That means Peter sat in prison for 7 days and 7 nights, knowing and anticipating the fact that he was going to die. He knew the day of his execution. He knew exactly when it was coming. Now, if that's you and me, what's the last night of your life look like? If that's you, if you knew that tomorrow you were going to get let out and have your head chopped off, what does that night before look like for you? Do you stay up? Are you sweating? Are you stressing? Are you freaking out? Are you in despair? Are you depressed? What does it look like for you? My guess is that for most of us, it doesn't look like what Peter's last night looks like here. Because verse 6 tells us that he's asleep, chained to 2 guards. The night before he's going to die, he's fast asleep in the cell, chained up to 2 guards. And I love what that tells us about Peter. Because, he wouldn't have always reacted that way. He wouldn't have always responded that way. I love how Peter's grown in his faith. I love how he's grown in his ability to respond to the face of unexpected trials. Do you know maybe right now that unexpected trial that hits you, you're not prepared for it. You're not prepared with how you're going to deal with it. And it would wreck you if it happened right now. But do you know, praise God, you can grow in the way that you respond to trials? You might not be good at it now, but God can help you to grow in the way that you respond to unexpected trials. Do you remember the story of Jesus calming the storm on the sea? Do you remember the disciples are out in the boat with Jesus, and a storm rises up unexpectedly in their lives, and the waves are crashing all around the boat, and the boat is about to sink. It's crashing into the boat. It's tossed to and fro, and they're all freaked out. All the disciples, including Peter, who are there, they're all freaking out, and they're all panicking, and they go down to the bottom of the boat to look for Jesus. And do you remember what Jesus is doing? What's Jesus doing? He's asleep. What's Peter doing here? He's asleep. What was Jesus doing in the boat? He's asleep. And they wake him up, and they go, same way we would. We go, Jesus, how can you sleep in a time like this? Don't you know? Don't you care that we're all going to die? And what does Jesus do? I love this. This is one of the first sermons I preached in seminary, Matthew 8:26. Jesus gets up. I love what he says. He says, "Why are you afraid, O you of little faith?" Then he rose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was great calm. You say, how can Jesus sleep in a storm like that? How can Jesus be sleeping at a time like that? How can he? What's the answer? Jesus can sleep because he knows he's in control of the storm. How can Peter sleep in a moment like this? How can he sleep knowing what's coming the next day? Same reason that Jesus could sleep. Peter can sleep in that cell because he knows that Jesus is still in control of the storm. He knows that. How can you sleep? Some of you can't sleep. When that unexpected trial hits, you're awake at night. You're panicking. You're going, Jesus, don't you care? Don't you know that we're going to drown? Don't you know that I'm going to die? Didn't you see this coming? But you can sleep because Jesus is still in control of the storm and of the trial. And what I would say to you this morning is some of you need to remember that what happened to you did not catch Jesus off guard. That he saw what you didn't see coming. That he expected what you didn't expect. And that he already had a plan for it. Jesus already had an answer for it. What I would say to you is, Jesus is always working, even when you cannot see it. He's always working, even when something sneaks up on you. He's always working, even when you didn't see it coming. He is working in all the unexpected things that happen in your life. He's already at work. He already has the answer for you. So here, Peter's in chains. 2 chains. There's 16 soldiers assigned to guard him. He knows he's going to die the next day, and there's no way out for him. Sorry. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it through this sermon today. He's chained. He's guarded. He's cornered. There's no way out. I will say the same thing for somebody in here. Somebody in here this past week, you were blindsided by something. You were surprised by something. You were caught off guard by something. And you think right now, you're chained up, you're cornered, there's no way out, and there's not even an escape plan for you. Because how can you have an escape plan when you didn't even see it coming? You didn't know it was going to come. You can't plan for that. So you think you're cornered. You think there's no way out. And let me tell you this morning, I want you to know this. I want you to know that at any moment, in any place you are, in any situation that you're in, the answer to your prayers can show up, and he can punch you in the side and wake you up and unlock the chains from you and unlock the doors to the cell and lead you out past your enemies, through the gate and out of the city to rescue. And nobody here saw it coming. Listen, nobody expected the answer that came. The church didn't expect him to be rescued. That's why when he shows up, they're talking about maybe it's his ghost. They didn't expect it. Herod didn't expect him to be rescued. The guards didn't expect him to be rescued. Peter didn't expect to be rescued. Peter never saw it coming, but listen to me. He was ready. He didn't expect it, but he was ready. Did you notice that when the angel shows up, Peter doesn't even know if it's real? He's wondering in this moment, he's going, is this true? That's the word. Is it true? Am I really walking out of here? Is this all a dream? But what does he do? What does he do? I love this. He does exactly what the angel said. He followed every single instruction. He gets up, he gets dressed, and he follows. He's half asleep, but he follows. He follows him out of the cell. He follows him out of the prison. He follows him through the streets. He follows him out of the gate. And he keeps on following right up until the angel leaves. And I love that the text tells us that it wasn't until the angel left that he realized that it was God's deliverance in his life. You know, sometimes God's answer just shows up unexpectedly in the middle of the night, in your cell, in your bedroom, at your front door knocking, and you will not always know in the moment. You won't always realize in the moment that this is God waking you up. Some of you are waking up in the middle of the night and you don't realize this is God trying to answer you. This is God trying to get your attention. This is God trying to speak to you. This is God leading you out. This is God knocking on the gate, that it's God answering your prayer. You will not always see that in the moment that it's happening, and you won't know until it's over. That's when you're going to look back and you're going to say with Peter, now I'm sure that the Lord, that's what Peter said. When the angel left, then he realizes, then he says, now I'm sure that it was the Lord's hand that delivered me, that it was the Lord's hand that led me away and rescued me from the expectations of all these people that thought I was going to die. So you may not expect the answer that you get, but that doesn't mean you can't be ready. You can be ready in the same way that Peter was ready. See, Peter wasn't ready the way that we think about being ready. When we think about being ready, we think about Peter waiting for the angel to show up. Is he waiting for the angel to show up here? Does it look like he's waiting for the angel to show up? If he was waiting for the angel to show up, the angel wouldn't have to tell him, get dressed, put your shoes on, get up, time to go. He would have already had all those things done, right? He's not ready in that sense. He's not ready in the sense that he knows what the answer is going to be. But he's ready in another sense. And this is the way that we can be ready for those unexpected answers from the Lord. He's ready in this sense. When the answer comes, when the answer nudges him, knocks him, punches him, smites him, that's the same word on the side, and he wakes up, this is how he's ready. This is how he's ready. His heart is inclined to obey. When the answer comes, his heart is inclined to obey. What I want to tell you is your real inclinations show up in those unexpected moments. It's in those unexpected moments, those unexpected trials, those unexpected answers that who you really are actually shows up. And so here is Peter in this half-asleep state, but he follows. He obeys. Why did he do that? Why did he get up? Why did he obey, even though he's half asleep, even though he didn't know if it was real or not? Why did he do that? Here's why. Because he'd been following when he's wide awake. He had trained his heart over time in all of the routine moments of his life to obey and trust and follow God. And when you train your heart in times that are your routine, the regular part of your day, not just in the trials, but in the time when things are going good, in the times when you don't feel like you need any help. When you train your heart, incline your heart to obey God in all of those regular, routine, ordinary moments and patterns of your life, then you can be ready for the unexpected moments. So how do you be ready for that unexpected answer? Here's how. Train your heart to follow Jesus now. Train your heart while you're wide awake, not in a trial. Make it your autonomic response. There's a good word for you. What's an autonomic response? It's a thing that you do without even thinking about it. It's like breathing at night. How many of you tell yourself to breathe at night? If you forget to tell yourself to breathe, you won't breathe at night. Anybody? No. You don't have to think about it. How many of you tell yourself to chew when you have food in your mouth? How many of you tell yourself to swallow when it's time to swallow? No, it's an autonomic response. And what I would tell you is make obedience, trust, following Jesus. Make that your autonomic response. Make it the thing that you do without even thinking about it. Make it the thing that you do in all occasions so that you can be ready in those moments when you're half asleep and the answer shows up unexpectedly in your bedroom so that you can be ready to do and follow and trust whatever it is that the Lord asks you to do. That's how you be ready. So this week, what I would say is when that unexpected trial hits, it's going to. When the trial hits, when the trial that you didn't see coming, when the answer that you didn't see coming, when the thing that you didn't expect, when you get caught off guard, what I would say is don't freak out, don't panic, even if that's your normal first response to things that catch you off guard. But no, go ahead and put it in your mind right now. No, the Lord is already working. He already saw what was going to happen. He saw what you didn't see. He saw what you didn't expect. What caught you off guard didn't catch him off guard. You have a first response, a first place to turn, a first place to go. And you can train your heart even now. What is the Lord telling you to do now? Not tomorrow, not when the trial comes. Now. I know you're ready to go. You got dinner waiting on you, or you got to fix it. You got to get to wherever it is that you're going. Whenever. What is God telling you to do now? Do you want to be ready for tomorrow? Do you want to be ready for what's unexpected? Do what he says to do now. Trust him now. Follow him now. And I promise you, when the unexpected moment hits, you might not see it coming, but you can be ready for it.